As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown? Good Lord, show me the way. Oh, sisters, let's go down, come on down. Oh, sisters, let's go down, down in the river to pray.
Well, of course, that song goes on to invite brothers and fathers and mothers down to the river to pray and to study about the good old way from the Bible. As Jeremiah said, ask for the old paths. Say it with me. Psalm 118, verse 24, this is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Remember Hebrews 3 and verse 13, but exhort one another daily while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. I want to begin today to think about the subject of friends. Hopefully, brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers can also be in the class of friends, but we have friends from a lot of other areas as well, don't we? And so we're going to look at what the Bible has to say about friends, hopefully learn some very useful things in how to be friends to others and how to treat those who are friends to us. And we're going to start today with a classic friendship, that of David and Jonathan. I just love this friendship, and I love to talk about it. And it absolutely sickens me that some from the LGBTQ community and other places have tried to cheapen this friendship somehow, tried to pervert it, distort it into something that was unholy and not the good friendship that it was. What David and Jonathan had was a beautiful friendship, the way God designed it between men, not the kind of romantic friendship that would be between a man and a woman, but the loyal, beautiful friendship that can exist between two men. Same thing could exist between two women or between others, a man and a woman. It just is a beautiful friendship. And so I want you to think about it for a few moments this morning. When we meet David and Jonathan, David is just a young shepherd boy. And he's the one that eventually goes to fight Goliath. This was definitely not the plan, but it was God's plan. And so that's the way it came about. And so you know the famous story, the young shepherd boy defeats the seasoned giant of the Philistines and cuts his head off with his own sword, with Goliath's sword. So he is now victorious, and the king and everyone in Israel is delighted at the results. And yet, things don't go the way that we think they will. So the prophet Samuel had told the current king, Saul, that because of his disobedience in regard to the Amalekites, King Saul was instructed by God to utterly destroy the Amalekites. Instead, he kept the King Agag, alive and the best of the livestock. And regardless of the reason for that, God had told him to utterly destroy everything. Because he did not, God sent the prophet Samuel to him. And as Samuel came, he was telling the king, that his actions were not acceptable to God, that what he had done was not obedience. Now, Saul just sort of insisted that he had been obedient, and I guess he thought that by doing all the other things he'd done, by destroying all the other things, by only leaving the king and the best livestock alive, that was obedience. The prophet straightened him out. And so as he was telling him, that what he did in reality was disobey God, I want you to pick up the reading with me over in 1 Samuel chapter 15, in verse 27. It says, as Samuel turned around to go away, Saul seized the edge of his robe, and it tore. So Samuel said to him, the Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you today, and has given it to a neighbor of yours who is better than you. And I think we all know that that neighbor turns out to be none other than that young shepherd boy that defeated Goliath. And down in verse 35, Samuel went no more to see Saul until the day of his death. Nevertheless, Samuel mourned for Saul, and the Lord regretted that he had made Saul king over Israel. Well, let's go ahead and go into chapter 16. It says, now the Lord said to Samuel, how long will you mourn for Saul, seeing I've rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and go. I am sending you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided myself a king among his sons. It's always a fascinating story to me to see Samuel go down to the family of Jesse in Bethlehem, and see how this thing plays out. When Samuel gets there, God has not told Samuel who this king's going to be, who this next king's going to be. He just told Samuel, I've found someone. And so Samuel has to discover this on his own. I mean, God will tell him when you get there, and when you get the right guy, I'll tell you. And he does. But it's a process, and Samuel thinks that he has it figured out, but he doesn't. And so, the sons of Jesse start parading in front of Samuel, and there's big and strong ones, and there's good looking ones, and all of these things. And Samuel gets a lesson on how God works. So in chapter 16 and verse 7, the Lord said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or at his physical stature, because I refused him. This is Eliab, I think. For the Lord does not see as man sees, for man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. So another son was brought, and another son, and 7 of Jesse's sons were there, and God just kept saying, nope, that's not it. He's not the one. And so in verse 11, Samuel said to Jesse, are all the young men here? Then he said, there remains yet the youngest, and there he is keeping the sheep. And Samuel said to Jesse, send and bring him, for we will not sit down till he comes here. So he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy with bright eyes and good looking. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is the one. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. So Samuel arose and went to Ramah. So what happened here? A new king has been anointed by God's prophet Samuel, but we still have the current king. And what happens from that point forward, you'll notice right away in verse 14, the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and a distressing spirit from the Lord troubled him. And it's interesting that that's sort of how David and Saul get together. Because of this distressing spirit, his servant suggests that someone be sent to play the harp to relieve this distressing spirit. And so what we find out is David's going to be that one. And it says in verse 21, David came to Saul and stood before him, and he loved him greatly, and he became his armor bearer. And Saul requests that David be allowed to stay there. And in verse 23, whenever the Spirit from God came upon Saul, David would take a harp and play it with his hand, and Saul would become refreshed and well, and the distressing spirit would depart from him. So that's kind of how they begin their relationship together. It's harmonious right now, but you can see that the sparks are coming because Saul's the current king. David's been anointed the king in waiting. And because of Saul's disposition, there's going to be trouble. I mean, it could have been a nice, friendly transition, but not with Saul the way that he behaved. And so then you in chapter 17, the next chapter, is where you have David and Goliath. And David defeats Goliath, and you would think that Saul would just be ecstatic that his new armor bearer and the guy that relieves his pain it has also saved Israel from this giant that it seems like no one could save them from, and yet Saul absolutely resents this one who was able to do this. When we get over to chapter 18 of 1 Samuel, it says, when he'd finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. Now, Jonathan is Saul's son. And can you imagine? You are the son of the current king, but you absolutely love the man who has been anointed the king in waiting. And so it says in verse 3, Jonathan and David made a covenant because he loved him as his own soul, and Jonathan took off the robe that was on him and gave it to David with his armor, even to his sword and his bow and his belt. So David went out wherever Saul sent him and behaved wisely. And Saul set him over the men of war, and he was accepted in the sight of all the people and also in the sight of Saul's servants. And it says it happened as they were coming home when David was returning from the slaughter of the Philistine. The women had come out of all the cities, and they're singing and dancing, and their song is, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s. And Saul was very angry, and the saying displeased him, and he said, they've ascribed to David 10,000s, and to me they've ascribed only thousands. Now what more can he have but the kingdom? So Saul eyed David from that day forward. And so if you continue to read the account, you know that when it says that Saul eyed David, that really what it means is he intended to kill him. He was that resentful of David's fame that he wanted to kill him. So let me quickly, I'm running out of time just setting the scene here, but in chapter 20, David fled, and he asked Jonathan, what have I done? What is my iniquity? What is my sin before your father that he seeks my life? And Jonathan said, by no means you shall not die. Indeed, my father will do nothing either great or small without first telling me. And why should my father hide this thing from me? It is not so. And David took an oath again and said, your father certainly knows that I have found favor in your eyes. And he said, do not let Jonathan know this, lest he be grieved. But truly as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, there's but a step between me and death. So Jonathan said to David, whatever you yourself desire, I will do it for you. Now, I just want you to think about this beautiful friendship that you've got Jonathan, who has been put in a terrible position. His father is the king. He has to respect his father. He has to respect the king. And yet David has been legitimately crowned the king in waiting. David is going to be king. It is God's will. And so Jonathan loves David. I think Jonathan knows that his father has been a scoundrel at times, and it puts him in a very unpleasant position. But he is the kind of friend that will do whatever it takes. And so you see in the relationship, the friendship between David and Jonathan, you see selflessness, because Jonathan is willing to put himself at risk for his friend. You see dependability. He is always there for his friend. They're there for each other. You see trust, absolute trust, because let's face it, I mean, they're going to be put in some untenable positions, and it's going to take absolute trust in each other. And you see love, the kind of pure love that two men can have as being friends, not that romantic kind of perverted love that the world would think about, but the kind of true, pure love that two men can have for one another. I have a friend that we became friends in 1992 in Kentucky when I was in my late 20s, and I began preaching there. Me and my family were there, and he and I became friends, really, really close friends, because of some things he was going through, and it just so happened that, I was there, and I was only there 3 years, and I left, and there was some time that he and I were out of touch, and yet we always loved each other because of the things we'd been through. And we picked up a few years later right where we'd left off, and we have been as tight as true friends can be ever since. I mean, we text or talk to each other every week, and it's the kind of friendship that I would wish everyone would experience. That's the kind of friendship that we're talking about here. And so we're going to continue thinking about friends like this. This was a great place to start, but it's by no means the place to end. So we'll continue that the next time, the Lord willing. Thanks for thinking about these things. If you'd like to talk more about this or any other Bible subject, leave your comment, use Facebook Messenger, send an email to us. We'd like to talk to you more about these things or any Bible subject. We always want to invite you to come and be a part of our services, whether it's Bible studies, worship services, or extra services that we have here at Stone Ridge. We meet at 514 Airport Road, Sundays 10, 11, and 6, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. for Bible study. You are always welcome to come and be a part of those assemblies. Until next time, if the Lord allows us to live and to have another opportunity, I hope that you have a great day. Be a good friend to those around you, and allow them to be good friends to you.
As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown? Good Lord, show me the way. Oh, brothers, let's go down, come on down. Oh, brothers, let's go down in the river to pray.